In the late summer of 1346, one of the most defining moments of the 100 Years' War unfolded near the village of Crécy in northern France. On this day, a vastly outnumbered English-led force, composed of English, Welsh, and Allied troops under King Edward III, stood defiant against the might of a much larger French army commanded by King Philip VI. Despite facing overwhelming odds, Edward III prepared his forces with care and discipline. Rather than allow his knights to fight mounted in the traditional style of chivalry, he ordered them to dismount and hold their ground alongside the infantry. This decision would prove crucial. His army numbered approximately 4,000 knights and men-at-arms, 7,000 longbow-wielding English and Welsh archers, and 5,000 spearmen. They quickly set about preparing their defensive position by digging ditches and scattering caltrops, small metal spikes, to disrupt cavalry charges. Meanwhile, the French army loomed in the distance. Its exact strength is debated, but estimates range between 20,000 and 30,000 troops, massively outmatching Edward's host. Among the French commanders were King Philip VI himself and the aging but legendary blind King John of Bohemia. At the head of the French advance were Genoese mercenary crossbowmen, followed by elite divisions of knights and men-at-arms, led by nobles like the Count of Alençon. As the battlefield braced for combat, the English formed into 3 strategic divisions. One flank was naturally protected by forest and marshland, while the other lay close to the small village of Wadicourt. This gave them a strong defensive advantage. Unfortunately for the Genoese crossbowmen, they had left their protective pavises, large shields, in the baggage train behind the lines. As they began their advance, a sudden rainstorm broke out, soaking the battlefield and rendering the strings of their crossbows almost useless. Despite this, the French made their intentions clear. They unfurled the oriflamme, the sacred battle standard of France, signaling that no prisoners would be taken and no mercy shown. But as the Genoese faltered in the face of English longbow fire and began to retreat, their own allies turned on them. French cavalry, angered by what they saw as cowardice, mercilessly cut down the fleeing mercenaries, creating chaos before the real assault even began. What followed was a relentless series of French cavalry charges, wave after wave, possibly as many as 15 in total, each repelled by the storm of arrows and tight English defenses. The battlefield before the English lines became a graveyard, clogged with the bodies of fallen men and horses. Amid this slaughter, the division led by Edward's 16-year-old son, Edward of Woodstock, later known as the Black Prince, was under severe pressure. A messenger galloped to King Edward, who had taken position at a windmill overlooking the field, requesting reinforcements for the prince. The king famously refused, saying, "Let the boy win his spurs." In an act of extraordinary bravery, the blind King John of Bohemia ordered his horse's bridle tied to those of his knights so they could lead him into battle. Charging together into the fray, they were all pulled from their saddles and killed, a tragic but noble gesture of honor in the face of certain death. King Philip himself did not escape unscathed. He was wounded during the chaos and had not one, but 2 horses killed beneath him before he finally withdrew from the field. As his departure signaled the collapse of French morale, the remaining knights and men-at-arms scattered. The once great host of France was in full retreat. English casualties were astonishingly low, some 300 men, while the French suffered devastating losses. Over 1,500 knights perished, and the once revered Oriflamme fell into English hands. Among the fallen was King John of Bohemia, whose body was later discovered by the Black Prince, a symbol of both courage and the cost of pride. The Battle of Crécy was not only a triumph of tactics and discipline over numbers, it also marked the dawn of a new era in warfare, where longbows and gunpowder began to eclipse the old ideals of chivalric combat. It was a turning point in the 100 Years' War, and a moment when England's star began to rise sharply in the troubled skies of medieval Europe.